You are nothing but trash in my house. Remember that. That came from my mother-in-law's mouth as she threw a dirty rag. 4 hours later, that same woman was trembling in a police station waiting room. As always, before we dive into a story with an ending that's going to feel so satisfying, let's do a quick roll call. Type present and tell me which city you're watching this story from in the comments. For everyone who's already liked and subscribed, I pray that God makes your problems easier, widens your income, and keeps you healthy. Thank you, my friends. Now listen carefully to my story. That night started like so many other nights, with me dragging myself home from work, exhausted and smelling like coffee and printer ink. My name was Emily. I'd been married to my husband, Mark, for 3 years, and for the last year, we'd been living with his mother-in-law, Margaret, temporarily, while we saved to buy our own place. Temporarily turned into something else. In front of other people, my mother-in-law was the sweetest older lady you could imagine. She was the one who always brought pies to church events, who hugged everyone, who said, "Oh, Emily is such a blessing to our family." Inside the house, when it was only us, she turned into someone else. She commented on my cooking, on my job, on my clothes, on my weight, on how late I came home. "You're never home," she'd say. "You think my son is your roommate. He needs a real wife, not a visitor." That night, I had stayed late at the office because my team was closing a big client contract. My boss had promised a promotion if everything went well. I was excited, tired but excited. I held a little bag of takeout, thinking, at least I'll bring something home for Mark. Maybe we can watch a show and relax together. I didn't even make it past the entryway. The front door had barely closed behind me when a dirty, wet rag smacked me right in the chest and slid down my blouse. It smelled like old mop water. "You are nothing but trash in my house. Remember that," my mother-in-law shouted from the hallway. I froze, still holding the takeout. "What are you doing?" She marched toward me, her face red. "What time is it, Emily? Look at the clock. 11 at night. My son is upstairs alone, and you come strolling in like some party girl." "I was at work," I said. My voice shook, but I tried to sound calm. "You can call my office. She shoved me hard. I wasn't ready for it. My back hit the edge of the shoe cabinet and a sharp pain shot through my side and belly. I slipped on the wet rug from her rag and stumbled again. When I looked down a second later, I saw a dark stain spreading on my jeans. Warm red fluid ran down my leg. For a moment, my brain couldn't process it. I reached down with my hand and pulled it back, and my fingers were smeared red. I think I'm bleeding," I whispered. My mother-in-law's eyes flicked down and then back up at my face. "Stop being dramatic. You slipped. You're always so clumsy. If you hadn't stomped in here like that, nothing would have happened." "I need to go to the hospital," I said, already dizzy. She crossed her arms. "If you call an ambulance and tell people I pushed you, I swear I will tell everyone you attacked me first. You know who they'll believe, the loving mother who raised Mark or the daughter-in-law who forgets her husband to chase money." I leaned against the wall, breathing fast. My head spun. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw our neighbor, Lisa, standing in the open doorway, her eyes wide. I hadn't even noticed the door was still half open. "Emily, are you okay?" Lisa asked. I opened my mouth to answer, but my vision went blurry. I heard my mother-in-law snap, "Mind your own business!" And then everything turned into noise, voices overlapping, footsteps, the distant sound of someone dialing their phone. By the time I understood what was happening, I was in an ambulance, Lisa holding my hand, my mother-in-law nowhere to be seen. At the hospital, everything moved both fast and slow. A nurse cut my jeans and looked at the red stain between my legs. Another nurse asked questions while wheeling me down a corridor under bright lights that hurt my eyes. I heard the words vitals, pressure, possible pregnancy, and felt even more disoriented. I'm not, I started, then stopped because no one was really listening. They settled me in a room, did tests, pressed on my abdomen. After a long while, a doctor came in. She was in her 40s with tired eyes and a calm expression. Her name tag said Dr. Harris. She pulled a chair next to my bed. "Emily, right?" she asked softly. I nodded. "I need you to listen carefully, okay? Is something wrong?" My throat felt tight. "First, I need you to know you're about 4 weeks pregnant." The room tilted for a second. "Pregnant?" I repeated. "No, that can't be right. I mean, we weren't even trying." "Well, sometimes life doesn't wait for our plans. The baby is still there for now. The bleeding could be from the pregnancy or from the trauma you experienced, or both. We're going to monitor you very closely." "Trauma?" I asked. She looked at the chart in her hands. "You have bruising on your side, your back, and your upper arm. The pattern is consistent with being grabbed and pushed. Also, some of the marks on your arms are older, from before today." I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. I fell," I said weakly, hearing my mother-in-law's voice in my head. "You slipped. You're clumsy." Dr. Harris watched me for a moment. "Emily, I've been doing this a long time. I see accidents, and I see patterns that aren't accidents." I couldn't meet her eyes. Then her face changed. All the calmness disappeared, and she went a bit pale. "Your neighbor told the triage nurse that she saw your mother-in-law shove you. Is that true?"
My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to protect the family, the image, the marriage. Part of me remembered the warm red fluid on my legs and how Margaret's face didn't even flicker when she saw it. Tears started rolling down my cheeks. I didn't even decide. The words just slipped out. "She pushed me," I whispered. "I was holding the food and she threw a rag at me and started yelling, and then she pushed me. I didn't even know I was pregnant. She hates that I work late. She says I'm not a real wife. She tells Mark that I'm ruining his life." Dr. Harris leaned forward. "Emily, you need to report this." I can't," I said. "She's my husband's mother. We live in her house. If I report her, Mark will hate me. He'll say I'm trying to send his mom to jail." Dr. Harris's voice became very firm. "Listen to me. This is not about making someone look bad. This is about your safety and your baby's safety. What happened tonight is serious. If this continues, there may come a day when you or your child do not walk out of that house." She let that sink in. Then she added, slowly, "If you change your mind, I can document your injuries fully and we can refer you to a domestic violence advocate. But you need to be honest. Do you feel safe going back there?" I thought about Margaret's eyes when she watched me slipping on the wet rug. There was no panic, no worry, only irritation. "No," I said, "I don't feel safe." Dr. Harris nodded like she'd been expecting that answer. "Then my recommendation is that you report this to the police. Tonight." Her face was serious, almost pale. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a family argument. This was something else. And it turned out that what she was seeing was only the surface of a much bigger plan. Mark finally arrived an hour later, his hair messy, his shirt half buttoned. He looked more annoyed than scared. "What happened?" he demanded. "Mom called me crying, saying you slipped, and now people are accusing her of hurting you." I stared at him. "She pushed me, Mark." His jaw tightened. "She said you came in yelling, that you grabbed her arm and she tried to get you off her. You know she has a bad back. Why would you do that?" "I didn't," I said. "She threw a dirty rag at me and shoved me." He sighed and rubbed his face. Em, you're bleeding. You're in shock. Maybe you fell and... I cut him off. I'm pregnant. That froze him. You're what? He asked. Pregnant. About 4 weeks. For a moment, his expression softened, like he was finally seeing me. Then he shook his head. Okay, we'll deal with that. But dropping a "mom assaulted me" right now, are you trying to break this family apart? That's not fair, I said. Mark, the doctor says I should report this. His eyes snapped to Dr. Harris, who had come back into the room quietly. You're advising her to call the cops on my mother? I am advising her to protect herself and her pregnancy from further harm. The bruises on her body, the neighbor's statement, and her account of what happened all point to physical abuse. Mark laughed once, a humorless sound. You don't know my mom. She would never. With respect, sir, I don't need to know your mother. I know what bruises look like. I know what "I fell" sounds like when it's true, and what it sounds like when someone has been repeating it because they're scared. Her words landed like stones in the room. Mark looked at me, torn. If you report her, Emily, I don't know how we come back from that. She'll be destroyed. You know how fragile she is. There it was, the role reversal. Margaret, the fragile victim. Me, the dangerous, dramatic wife. I almost lost our baby on that floor, I said quietly, and she didn't even care. His gaze darted away. Dr. Harris stepped closer to my bed. Emily, I can bring a social worker in to talk to you. They can explain your rights. Whatever you decide, we'll document everything. That night, I didn't sign the police report yet. I was too shaken. The Dr. Harris took full photos of my bruises, wrote a detailed report, and handed me a card. Her cousin, she explained, with a lawyer who worked with domestic violence cases. His name was Daniel. If you feel like you're being pushed into a corner later, she said, looking between me and Mark, call him. And remember, just because someone is family does not mean they're allowed to hurt you. Going back to that house felt like walking into a trap with my eyes open. Margaret was sitting on the couch when we came home, wrapped in a blanket, eyes puffy like she'd been crying. The TV volume was low, playing some drama. As soon as she saw me, she flinched and clutched her back dramatically. Please, don't let her come near me, Mark. I'm scared she'll do something again. Mom, stop, Mark said weakly. I stood there stunned. Do something again? You shoved me. She whitened her eyes in fake shock. Hear that? She's twisting it already. Mark, I raised you, I carried you, and now she wants to send me to prison over her own clumsiness. I didn't even know I was pregnant. You could have... If you can't protect my grandchild, maybe you don't deserve to raise it. That sentence hit like a slap. I understood what she was saying under the words. I can turn your own child against you. I can make sure everyone thinks you're unfit. Later that night, when Mark went to take a shower, I overheard her on the phone whispering in that tight, mean tone she used when she thought no one was listening. She's weak, always crying. If she keeps causing drama, I'll talk to a lawyer. I'll make sure the baby stays in this house with us. She can go back to whatever hole she came from. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I remembered Dr. Harris's card in my bag. The next day, while Mark was at work and Margaret was at the market, I called Daniel. He met me at a small cafe near the hospital. He was tall, with kind eyes and a direct way of talking that made me feel both nervous and relieved. First, I'm sorry you're going through this, he said after I told him the basic story. Second, we need to talk about money and property. That threw me off. Money? Abusers don't usually risk everything for nothing, he said. Your mother-in-law sounds controlling. Has she mentioned anything about your house, your income, life insurance, anything like that? I frowned, thinking back.
She keeps talking about how the house is hers, even though Mark and I have been paying the mortgage. The deed is under Mark's name and her name. When I joined the family, she suggested putting my name on some paperwork for tax reasons, but then she never followed through. She hates that I make more money than Mark right now. She calls my job pointless. Daniel nodded slowly. Has your husband taken out any life insurance policies on you recently? That question made my stomach drop. I don't know. We're going to find out, and we're going to collect evidence. You're not crazy. You're in a situation where someone benefits financially if you're out of the picture or legally ruined. He laid out a plan in simple steps. 1. Get copies of any insurance policies and house documents. 2. Save and record any threats or manipulative conversations. 3. Get statements from witnesses like Lisa and Dr. Harris. 4. Wait for your mother-in-law to make her next move because people like her can't help themselves. We're not going to burst into the police station with nothing, he said. We're going to walk in with so much proof that they have no choice but to act. I went home with my heart pounding, half terrified, half hopeful. That same week, Margaret showed her next card. She knocked on our bedroom door one morning, holding a tray with breakfast. "Emily," she said in a sugary voice, "can we talk? I know we've had tension. You know I worry. I stayed up all night thinking about how to protect you and the baby." The fake sweetness made my skin crawl, but I forced myself to answer. "What do you want to talk about?" She sat on the edge of the bed. "I talked to a friend who works with a notary. She said we should update the house documents now that you're pregnant to make sure everything is protected for the future." She smiled. "We can add some clauses. You just sign, and if anything happens to you or Mark, the baby will be safe with me." I heard Daniel's voice in my head. Wait for her next move. "What kind of clauses?" I asked, keeping my tone calm, curious. She waved a hand. "You wouldn't understand the legal language. It's better if you let us handle it. My friend already prepared the papers for tomorrow. It's simple. You come, sign, and we're done." "I'd like to read them first. Can I take a photo?" Her eyes flashed, but she forced her voice to stay sweet. "Of course, dear, but no need to bother that little head. We're family." That night, when she went to her room, I heard her phone ringing in the hallway. My own phone was recording from inside my pocket. "I told you, tomorrow we fix it. After she signs, the house is safe. If she tries to run later, she leaves with nothing. And if she keeps pushing me, well, there are always stairs." I grabbed the phone so fast I almost dropped it. My hands were shaking. She had said the quiet part out loud. That recording became Exhibit A. The next morning, at the notary office felt like the climax of a crime movie, except it was my life. The office was cold, with glass walls and polite receptionists. A conference room had been booked for the family. Margaret walked in with her favorite public face on, soft smile, pearls, a pastel cardigan. Mark looked nervous, glancing between us. I wore long sleeves over my fading bruises and tried not to vomit from morning sickness and anxiety. Daniel was already inside, pretending to be my friend from work who understood contracts. The notary, a man in his 50s with glasses, laid out a stack of papers. "So these are the updated deeds and associated documents your mother-in-law requested." He looked at me. "Requested?" I repeated. Margaret laughed lightly. "It's for her safety. She's pregnant. She needs someone responsible to help manage things." I looked at the first page. Even with my limited legal knowledge, I recognized phrases that shouldn't be there. Things like irrevocable power of attorney and sole decision-making authority in case of incapacity. "Incapacity?" I asked. Margaret leaned forward. "Imagine, Emily, if something happened to you, an accident or stress from work, someone has to make decisions quickly for the baby, for the property. You don't want strangers involved." My stomach turned at the word accident. Daniel cleared his throat. Actually, I do have a few questions about these clauses. Margaret frowned. And you are? Daniel smiled pleasantly. I'm Daniel Harris, Emily's lawyer. Her mouth fell open. You're what? My lawyer, I repeated, and suddenly I felt a little stronger. I asked him to be here to protect me and my baby. The notary shifted in his seat. Mrs. Collins, Daniel said, turning to Margaret, you didn't mention when you requested these drafts that they would essentially strip Emily of control over her own property and medical decisions, giving them to you. That's not what this is. This is standard. You're twisting it. He slid another document onto the table. Is this also standard? A life insurance policy on Emily, taken out 3 months ago, with you as the sole beneficiary. Mark blinked. What? I stared at the paper. My name, Margaret's name, a number that made my head spin. Is this also standard? A life insurance policy on Emily, taken out 3 months ago, with you as the sole beneficiary? Mark blinked. What? I stared at the paper. My name, Margaret's name, a number that made my head spin. I never signed that, I whispered. You signed the packet at the bank, remember? Margaret said quickly. We were refinancing the house. It was all together. Routine. Daniel looked at Mark. According to the bank clerk we spoke to, you signed under pressure, and Emily was rushed through a stack of documents without proper explanation. The clerk also remembers Mrs. Collins saying, and I quote, "At least if anything happens to her, the money stays in the family." The door opened, and a woman stepped in. I recognized her from the bank, though I'd never paid attention to her before. She looked nervous, but determined. This is Miss Patel, he said, the bank clerk. Margaret shot to her feet. This is ridiculous. You're all ganging up on me. We're not done, Daniel said. He took out his phone and hit play. The room filled with my mother-in-law's voice from the night before. After she signs, the house is safe. If she tries to run later, she leaves with nothing. And if she keeps pushing me, well, there are always stairs. Her own words hung in the air like poison. Mark went pale. Mom, what is this? She's editing that, Margaret said wildly. This generation, always with their phones. You can't trust. There is a timestamp, Daniel said calmly. We can verify the audio. We also have Emily's medical records and photos of the bruises from the hospital with a detailed report from Dr. Harris. All of that, plus Miss Cotell's statement, plus the neighbor's statement that she saw you pushing Emily before she was taken to the hospital bleeding. He glanced toward the door again. This time, it was Lisa who stepped in, cheeks flushed, but eyes steady. I saw you shove her. You told me to mind my own business while she was on the floor bleeding. I'm done pretending I didn't see that. Margaret looked around at all of us, her mask cracking. So you all work together behind my back? She hissed. I am the victim here. She is trying to destroy my life. She wants my son, my house, everything. Mrs. Collins? Another voice said from the doorway. A police officer walked in, holding a folder. I'm Officer Reynolds. We've received a request to be present for this meeting from Mr. Harris here, along with documentation of possible domestic abuse and attempted fraud. Margaret's legs gave out, and she fell back into her chair. This is a family matter, she whispered. You can't take my family from me. The officer sighed. When a pregnant woman ends up in the hospital bleeding after being pushed, when there's an insurance policy that benefits the person accused of pushing her, and when we have recordings like that, it stops being a private family matter. Mark covered his face with his hands. I didn't know about any of this, he said to me. I swear, Emily, I thought Mom was just being overprotective. I didn't think you... I didn't think you were in danger. Those words hurt. Didn't think I was in danger, but at least now he was seeing it. Mrs. Collins, the officer continued, you are not under arrest at this exact moment, but you are now officially under investigation. We will need you to come down to the station to give a statement. In the meantime, a temporary protective order will be requested on Emily's behalf. Oh, what? She whispered. It means you are not allowed to come near Emily or contact her. And, given the evidence, the judge is likely to include her unborn child in that order once they're born. Margaret's face drained of color. Her hands shook. You can't do this, she said to Mark. Say something. Tell them you won't let them take your mother away. Mark looked at her for a long, painful moment. Then he turned to me. Emily, I'm so sorry, he said, tears in his eyes. I didn't protect you. I believed her over you. He looked back at his mother. His voice wavered, but stayed firm. Mom, you hurt my wife. You almost hurt my child. I can't defend that. She let out a strangled sob, half scream, half sob. As they led her out of the room to go to the station, she kept looking back over her shoulder at me, her earlier arrogance replaced with raw fear. And in that moment, I realized something. For the first time since I married into that family, I wasn't the one who was scared. She was. The investigation took months. The recording, the bank clerk's testimony, the medical report, and Lisa's statement all lined up against my mother-in-law. The life insurance policy looked horrible for her. The attempted power of attorney documents made everything even worse. In the end, the court issued a long-term protective order. She wasn't allowed anywhere near me or my child. She faced charges related to domestic abuse and attempted fraud. Some extended family members tried to defend her at first, but when the evidence came out, they went quiet. A few even called me later to apologize for ever thinking I was too sensitive or ungrateful. As for Mark and me, we didn't magically become perfect. We moved out of Margaret's house into a small, slightly run-down apartment closer to my office. At first, we slept on a mattress on the floor because we couldn't afford much furniture, but that mattress felt safer than the biggest bed in Margaret's house. We started couples counseling. I told him plainly, if you gaslight me again, if you take anyone's side over my safety and our child's safety, I'm done. He listened. He showed up. He read about abuse and manipulation. He visited Dr. Harris with me once to hear directly from her what she saw in that ER room. When our daughter Lily was born months later, Mark cut the cord with tears running down his face. There was no Margaret in the waiting room, no pastel cardigan, no fake tears. And I didn't miss her. From everything that happened, I learned that the most dangerous people are often the ones who hide behind family and love while they slowly crush you. I also learned that staying quiet to keep the peace nearly cost me my baby, my home, and my life. If you're in a situation like mine, please don't ignore the red flags. Get information, get support, and protect yourself before someone else decides your future for you. If you've been through something similar or want to share your own story, write it in the comments. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, hit the like button, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories.